everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of SUGTalks. I'm Craig Dale, your host, and together with our special guest, we'll take a deep dive into the topics, challenges, and opportunities facing SAP users today. Please make sure you subscribe so you never miss another episode. I'm delighted to be joined today by Sudeep Shetty, Chief Information and Transformation Officer at Britvic. So welcome, Sudeep. And in today's episode, which is one and the latest in our series of interviews with senior IT leaders, where we talk about their career highs, lows, and also tips for getting ahead and the challenges that they face throughout their career. And I really look forward to getting into that with you, Sudeep. So, as anyone that's listened to our previous episodes know, I always ask a bit of an icebreaker question, and I do really enjoy a food-related icebreaker. So this week, I thought I'd ask Sudeep, what is your favourite midnight or late-night snack? I'll give you a little moment to think about that. And to be honest, from my perspective, it's not often I'm up that late. When I got handed this question, it was like, oh dear, where am I? And I'm thinking, okay, if it's late night and it's midnight from my perspective, it's when I've been out for a few sociables, shall we say. And it was always a chicken kebab from the kebab shop on the way home with both chili and garlic sauce. So, that's me and what I like. So, Sudeep, what's yours?
So first, Craig, thanks for having me on the show. It's always great to participate in anything you guys do because the whole SAP user group community is so important for our teams, and if I can help in any way or contribute in any way, it means a lot for me and my team. So thanks for having me over here. For your icebreaker question, to be fair, I have two kids now. One of them is a toddler, 9 months or so. For me, midnight snack is when they wake up and I have to wake up. And so the max I do is go down and have some fruits. And to complement, if I get another 10 minutes, I'll have ice cream or something sitting there. It's like a bit of a treat for myself. But that's how far it goes. I've missed that opportunity of having a lot of drinks going out kind of thing. But whenever I do, yeah, I'll have a doner kebab like you. But most times it's a bit of a fruit or a bit of ice cream.
Oh, that's nice. I like a bit of ice cream. And when, I know when I was feeding my grandchildren when they were younger, I always like a bit of their fruit puree. And people look at me and say, oh, you eating that with them? Oh, yeah, I enjoy that. Oh, well, welcome, Sudeep. And you're more than welcome. And, just to kick us off, I suppose, could you just let me know, how did you get into IT and what led you to the field of SAP?
So, and this is a bit interesting story. So I don't have a big, information technology or IT background. I did my mechanical engineering. And I had a bit clear set plan, which obviously didn't come to life. But my plan was do my engineering and join my family business, which is in the field of mechanical. We make parts for cars and all that kind of thing.
Okay.
So that was my plan. But in 2005, when I was graduating in India, there was a big tech boom. And to be fair, before even I completed my graduation, I had about 3 offers from big tech companies. So I decided to join Cognizant. And my aim was that before I go into family business, I wanted to learn more about the corporate culture and work from there. So I joined Cognizant, did my training over there. And I was just lucky that I got into one of Cognizant's big accounts, which is JP Morgan Bank. And I was immediately had the opportunity to come to London and work over here. So that's how my tech career started. From an SAP perspective, when I was at JP Morgan, I didn't have much exposure to SAP. So what I was doing, I was a business analyst. My job was predominantly help them build a settlement system for middle office, back office trades. So I was a business analyst. I'll take requirements. We were building a custom system in Cognizant. This is the time before a lot of SaaS products. So, we were building a lot of systems ourselves. And I did that for 4 years, also helped JP Morgan build a captive in Mumbai. And after that, I joined M&S. And that's where my SAP career began kind of thing. So M&S is a big SAP house, and we were doing a big SAP implementation called, we used to call it BFP, Business Foundation Program, and which is rightly so. SAP is the base for any business. If you have SAP, that's your core ERP most of the times. So that's where my career with SAP started, and after that, I worked at a number of retail organizations like Selfridges, Jackwells, which were all big SAP houses. So I continued my journey with SAP, and then I switched into FMCG, CPG with Britvic, and we'll talk about it more. But again, we are a big SAP house over here. So that's a bit about how I got into technology. So I'm not a core technologist at heart, and I just want to be honest about it. I did my mechanical engineering, which works more on logic, but then I got into it, and I loved what I did at JP Morgan, what I did with Cog, and I thought I'm going to continue my career this way. And I loved living in London. So that's how it has been for the last, 18 years now.
Oh, fantastic. And to be honest, when we have these conversations, that's not as rare as it might seem. There's a lot of senior IT leaders that we've spoken to who kind of come from a non-IT background and obviously just, came into the role with transferable skill sets and a different business viewpoint as well, which is really good. And it's interesting there from, I suppose, your outlook, mechanical engineering, retail, and then FMCG, etc. It's quite a nice varied experience there as you've gone through that life. So how, I suppose, if you're looking to move to Britvic, what made you choose that? How did you land that role?
And again, that is very interesting. So, I loved retail and I loved the e-com space. So that was booming through that time. So, and I worked at brands like Selfridges, which we were doing, and GDPR was not a constraint at that time. So we were doing things which was just everything was focused on having an enhanced user experience. So how can we take the data? How can we personalize everything? So I love that part of the journey. I love the supply chain part of e-commerce as well, like the whole logistics part of it. But after doing M&S, Selfridges, Jackwells, I came to a point and I've said I've kind of saturated within an industry which is retail, and that too focused on e-com kind of thing. Did a lot of transformation in that space, but still I felt I needed to go a bit beyond the retail domain. And I had the then CIO at Britvic, a gentleman called Steve Potts, is a very close friend of mine. He was over here, and I got approached. I had friends over here. Many of them are still working with me. And I decided to come and give it a shot. And I never went back to retail, because since then retail has gone a bit downhill kind of thing. The traditional retail space and CPG, FMCG is booming. And I love the part of working in a CPG industry, because you get to see far more. So when you work in retail, normally manufacturing is done somewhere else. You mainly control the selling part and the fulfillment part. But when you work in a CPG industry, you actually see far more. You see the end-to-end supply chain, from procuring raw materials like oranges and getting the final orange juice product out there to the consumer. It's a very different experience. And then when you look at Britvic, for me, this is the longest job I've ever done. I've been at Britvic almost over 6.5 years now, very close to 7 years now. Britvic is a unique company in some ways. So it's very people driven. And when I say people, I mean our employees, our customers, our consumers. That's at the heart of it. And we run the company on three key fundamentals, which we call as at 3Ps, which is people, planet, and performance. So our view is performance will always come if you focus on people and planet. Obviously, we just finished our financial year. I can't talk much about performance, but if you look at all our past history, performance has always worked for us. And Britvic, since my time over here, has been on a real transformation journey. So I really enjoy what I do, and that's the way I got into it.
Oh, fantastic! And how big's your team at Britvic?
So at Britvic, I run about 3 distinct departments. So I started 3.5 years back as the CIO, and I'm responsible for global IT. So that's where I started, and I'm still responsible for all of the global technology team. About 2.5 years back, I took on responsibility of data and analytics. So we're consolidating a significant part of our data analytics reporting teams, and that now sits centrally, which makes a huge difference to drive change. And third, I've took recently in the last year, I've taken responsibility of group-wide transformation. So any transformation that sits beyond the space of technology and data, that still sits under me now. And especially in the current environment, where in the macroeconomy, at least for us in GB, nothing seems to be working in the last 8-9 months, especially since the war in Ukraine kicked off. That's a big part of my job now, seeing how we can transform our company, not with a short time lens. Obviously there's cost pressures and everything, but with a long term view. How do we transform our supply chain? How do we transform our commercial capability? How do we transform our functions? So those are the three distinct departments I run. And globally, we have a team in France of about 17-18 people. We have a team in Brazil of about 20 people, and we have a team over here of about 80-85 people, kind of thing. So roughly about 130 people. But the way we operate is very partner, our partners are a big part of our strategy. And I always say this: we make soft drinks. Yeah, I already said my background. So our core capability is not technology and data, and that's not the space we play in. We need technology and data to enable us to transform us, but our main capability is making soft drinks that are loved by millions of people and are family favorites. So for us, the partners are a big part of our network, and they're almost like our extended family. So we don't distinguish. So we have a lot of employees with Infosys, with Amazon, with Wipro, who are part of our family, and that's how we operate in a very, I won't call it outsourced because it undermines it, but in a very strategic sourcing model. So some bits we do in-house, some bits we do with our partners.
And I think that's really important. We've talked about it so many times in different episodes on here, the kind of the value of relationships in business. And it really is, like you said, that part of the family. I think that's excellent and shows the strength of the relationships in the supply chain, etc. So can you tell me a bit more about the transformation of Britvic and what's happening at the moment and perhaps where you're going there?
So I'll split that in three spaces, as my role is in three areas, and we are transforming in all three areas. And one is just called transformation, but from a technology perspective, so when I took on as the CIO, we started with the journey. And this is, before COVID, before Ukraine war and everything. We started with a journey to simplify and standardize Britvic. And that was our motto, to simplify and standardize Britvic to the means of technology and data. We launched our strategy at the beginning of 2020, just before COVID. We launched our strategy called Mission 2025 to be a FTSE 100 company. And one of the biggest enablers in there was technology, data, and culture. And they're all linked together. So we did analysis for a long time, and our strategy was, how can I simplify the lives of our employees so they're spending most of their time in, not struggling with technology, but focusing on their day jobs like selling or manufacturing and those kind of things. So with that journey, we kicked off a number of programs. And if you look at Britvic, as I said, what do we do? You manufacture, so you make your products. You ship them, so logistics is a big part of it. In manufacturing, we procure a lot of raw material, that's our biggest spend, and then you sell them. So if you look at those big parts, those are the areas we started with. We started with a commercial transformation program to transform our complete commercial capability, like how we sell, how we do promotions. We started with warehousing with SAP. So we implemented a product called SAP EWM, which is now in its final stages, and we have been implementing it across all our factories to get a single view of stock. We are implementing another SAP product called Ariba, which is in the procurement space. So we are implementing all modules of SAP now, and we've just finished it, literally just finished it. And that's been a big part of transforming our procurement function. We are implementing SAP's Asset Manager in the digital manufacturing space, and another Amazon's product. So those were the big things that we kicked off. Some of them are completed and some of them are yet to be completed. But how we looked at the technology strategy is, we are actually trying to reduce the number of systems. So if you look at Britvic, we are a business mainly for the grocery world. When we had our first SAP implementation about 15-20 years back now, and we were selling it to the big groceries like Tesco's and Asda's. But since then, our business has evolved significantly. We have a big out-of-home presence. We sell it to the wholesalers, to the pubs, to the restaurants. So we now need to cater for the big players and the small players, in different spaces at the individual level. We also have a big e-commerce presence now from a B2B, D2C perspective. So we wanted to, our systems had just evolved over a period of time. So we took a step back and say, no, we need to build our systems that cater for our future presence and how we want to go and grow in every area. So we actually, like with the commercial program, we have replaced about 8 systems with one. So our aim is to simplify. So that was the first part of our transformation, and we're about halfway through our journey, and the second half is yet to come now. But in the first half, we focused on everything on the periphery, transformed all the functions and the key business drivers, and then we'll go do a big heart surgery with a greenfield implementation of S4 HANA, which is what will start now in coming time. So that's the first part. Then we did a major data analytics transformation. So if you look at, again, CPG companies, master data is a big part. So when we were doing all these tech programs, we said, okay, this is a good opportunity to transform all our data as well. So we changed all our customer hierarchies, product hierarchies, how we look at data. We just transformed the whole bit. And that is helping us now significantly to integrate external data like Nielsen data, Kantar data, the market data very easily in our systems, because we are standard now. So we can get the data real time, see what's happening in the marketplace, make our decisions accordingly. So that's the second part of our transformation, which goes very hand in hand with the technology space. Third is pure transformation beyond technology and data in the business. And again, technology and data plays a role, but it's more focused on efficiency. We are running a big supply chain transformation program because we did a supply chain investment of about 260 million couple of years back, and we have invested and modernized all our factories, and we have one of best in class factories in almost Europe right now. But when you put that level of investment, you need to continuously have programs to get the most out of it, to sweat your assets. So we are now saying, can we get all the data real time, and can we make the most out of it? Are we focusing on the big SKUs in the current climate? So there's a lot of supply chain transformation. There's a lot of functional transformation, getting ready for S4. So that's how I look at the wider transformation of our business, getting ready for what is yet to come tomorrow. And obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty in the short term, but in the long term, we know where we want to be and how we'll get there.
Fantastic. So it sounds like you've got a lot going on. I suppose it keeps you out of trouble, and especially when you're up with the babies on an evening as well. I hope you do find time to sleep.
Hi, we're the UK and Ireland SAP user group. Did you know we're a fiercely independent not-for-profit? Did you know we're a vibrant community of over 6,500 SAP users? And did you know we help each other by sharing resources, championing education, and influencing SAP's future development? Well, you do now. If you'd like to get the most from your SAP investments and be in the know, visit our website, sapusers.org/pod. We hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast.
So lots going on there in transformation of the company in general. SAP playing quite a part of that, and obviously you also touched on some of the challenges that we've had in recent times with the likes of the pandemic, or obviously crisis in Ukraine, and of course we had Brexit that kind of unfolded over several years. How have those challenges affected you, and how have you overcome them?
So the good thing is those challenges are for everyone. And the way we at Britvic, not just me, we at Britvic look at it as every challenge is an opportunity. So it comes with disruption, it comes with pain, but through every challenge, some people will die, and I don't mean the literal sense like the pandemic, but some businesses will really struggle and die, and which is what we have seen a lot, especially in the retail space. But some businesses will absolutely flourish, and I don't mean the likes of just the Amazons, during COVID, they hit the roof with all their success. But beyond that, there were so many other businesses with the strategic views, they succeeded through it. So every time when we get into a crisis like that, and Britvic is amazing in crisis, we actually turn the angle and say, how can we grow through this? So if I look at the problems we face, so during Brexit, we actually faced a big shortage of drivers. And for us, from a logistics perspective, that was a big pain. We also faced shortage of raw material. So that becomes a pain. During that time, there was a big CO2 crisis as well. So there were like only 3 places where the CO2 comes from. And for one factory was down, 2 were in maintenance. So and then CO2 gets prioritized for rightly so for the food industry, for the meat industry. So we went through a lot of that, but year on year, actually, the crisis has made us better. We are more and more resilient. When I look at COVID, um, COVID was one of the worst things to mankind. Like, from a health perspective, it was bad for everyone. I had COVID, my family had COVID, and I know actually people within friends and family who had really bad impact. So that is really the worst part of it. But when I look at us as Britvic as a business, we actually uh, it impacted us because a big part of our business is out of home. So when pubs and restaurants are closed, who is consuming your drinks? But what we did that we changed the dynamic and we focused so much on the retail part because the retail boomed through it. Tesco had a like one of the most biggest success years during that time. So we took massive amount of market share in the retail part, and our products were very well accepted in the business. We drove a lot of innovation. We drove a lot from a sustainability angle because people got very health conscious during that period of COVID. Like, and everyone was home. Everyone was very focused on what they were eating, what they were drinking. So we took the advantage of that. From a technology perspective, it actually helped us, and it's a bit funny when I say that. We actually did a big leapfrog into. So we did a journey of digitalization which would have taken us about 2 years. We did that in 6 months. So, and I think that most organizations, it helped them because everyone was forced in using Teams and Zoom and all that. Imagine in the past world, you had to force people, especially at the senior level. But now there was no other medium. So Teams adoption went for us through the roof. People were so used on using online, like, our intranet platforms and everything. We didn't cut any of the investment. For some companies and some tech functions, there was a problem. A lot of investment was cut because the future was so uncertain. But as I said, our board and our CEO is so focused on the long-term growth. We actually didn't cut any of our investment. All the tech programs just carried on. That's why we could finish everything on time right now. So we didn't have the big part of that impact from a technology space in the grand scheme of things. So I think that was positive. When I look at Ukraine crisis, obviously again shortage of drivers, inflation is through the roof, so that's for everybody. We are taking price in the marketplace like every other provider is doing. So there is a lot of inflation coming our way, and we now have to do it in the most sensible manner because we think about the consumers the most. What does it mean for the consumer about their choices and everything? So it's a very tricky situation for us. So if within all those, I think the one that has hit us the most is the Ukraine war. But again, and as I said, we are in the close period right now, so I can't talk much. But I think we had a good year, and we are all prepped for next year in a way that for the last 4 years we have learned that whatever you plan, it's not going to go that way. So we are more prepared, we are more resilient, and we are actually now with the open mindset for the first time. Okay, it's not going to be hunky dory. You just got to be prepared for it. Because after COVID, when we started this year, and our financial year is October to September, so COVID had really come in control. We thought this year is going to be okay, easy for once in our lifetime. It's going to be a reasonably easy year, but it turned out to be one of the most difficult years. So now we are thinking, okay, it's only going to get difficult from here, and we are just more resilient and we're more prepared for it.
It's very, very interesting there, and I think the word you use there is key, and that is resilience, and reflecting on that as well, resilience because of the perhaps agility, the flexibility, and that attitude of every challenge being an opportunity just puts you in a completely different mindset when coming up against those challenges. And I like what you're saying there as well, and for me, it's balance. What I see, what you were talking about there, 'cause you mentioned earlier the people, planet, and performance, and balancing those three on your people, for the planet, and obviously ensuring that the company can still perform, because if it doesn't, then it's not going to be there in the long term to feed back into the people and the planet, etc. So excellent, and thank you very much for that. And so when you're going through these transformations, when you're looking at moving into new areas, and also I suppose when you come up against the odd challenge internally, where do you and your teams go for help on specifically, I suppose, SAP related matters?
See, I think to be fair, we have a very healthy relationship with SAP, and and there are two types of problems. One, you have a SAP is down and production is down. So SAP is that critical for us. It'll stop our business because we'll stop production. For that, we have a really good set mechanism of our operations team with Infosys contacts SAP and all that kind of thing. So that never is a problem. What happens to the next year is when we're working with issues with SAP on something that you can't find a root cause, or something that is really tricky. Our teams connect with people in the SAP user group. Our teams go to communities. Our teams talk to other people as well, other FMCG providers through the connect. So I think that's one area of working, and we have our SAP based system, and they work very closely with the user group community. Then we have product related issues. So we implemented SAC now, and nobody uses SAC as much as we do. This is what we have learned from SAP. So we were one of the early adopters 4 years back, and we have about 900 people on SAC. We don't use it just for reporting, we use it for planning as well. So we have we have stress tested the product to another level. So you obviously face problems. And when you face problems, and when it comes to me, because I'm not involved in the day-to-day operations, but when it comes to me, it's an escalation. So my first point of contact is always Mikkel, and he's a brilliant leader. I feel like he's while being the MD of SAP for UK&I, he is so focused on each customer and their problems, and he knows the details. So immediately, if I send an email, he'll respond to me with all the detail, which at times is like, how does he have time to do all that? But he does it, and he puts the right people in place. And a good example now is we had a problem with SAP. He directly pulled in the product owner, someone sitting in America, and he said, that's the chief product officer for this product. He's a very senior person, and that person is on daily calls with our people to say, okay, how do we fix it? So we do get issues, but we believe in the wider ecosystem of SAP and how they operate, kind of thing. And I think that's always the journey with SAP. You have SAP like the ERP system. We hardly get any issues because it's very stable. It's like super stable. But when you have new products, they always come with problems, obviously, so like any other product. But then we believe in the SAP product ecosystem and the way they partner with us. They look at us as a strategic partner. For us, they are very, very strategic. And then we have the relationship to make things happen.
Back again to what you were talking about earlier on relationships and the power of those positive relationships and how that can build trust. And people will always be there for you. And that's excellent. And I agree. You build those relationships, and I've always found Mikhail to be absolutely excellent with SAP, and he is very focused on the customers, and I would completely agree with that. So that great relationship with SAP, great relationship with your partners. You mentioned the wider ecosystem and also the SAP user group. Thank you for that. And, all of that comes together in that SAP community. And, it's there for helping, building healthy relationships and trusted relationships with your peers and your teams being able to do that as well. And, I think that really speaks volumes in what you've said there, and I'm delighted that you brought that to bear, because it really does show that power. Back again, I'm sorry if I'm just labouring the point, that power of relationships. I just think it's phenomenal. And so you've moved through. We've already talked about the lots of different roles from in different industries. How has that experience in other roles and industries helped or impacted your career when working with SAP? And have you been able to bring some key learnings into that you've applied?
So as I said, I'm not a technologist, so I'm not the guy who knows SAP to the core, or to be honest, any product. But for me, the strength is logic and relationships. So through the years, for various partners I've worked, I've always had great relationship with SAP. So before Mikael, it was Jan Samal, who is now running their Singapore operations, I think. So I had great relationship with him. So that helped. So what I brought to Britvic with was the relationships. And when I was working at SAP and, bigger organizations, or at least bigger at that time, you build strategic long-term relationships with senior people, and that really helps you. So that is one part. Second, when I look at what people do with SAP. SAP is a very sophisticated product. Yeah, it's been there for decades now. Yeah, like
50 years now. It's
50
the
years. Yeah.
birthday this year.
So yeah, so it was there before I was born. So there is you need to appreciate what it brings and how it has evolved and everything. What people do is, because SAP allows you the freedom, the first thing people look at is customization. And then what happens, because a product like that stays in your ecosystem for a long time? Many of the products come and go because products evolve, like, every 5 years things change, but you don't change your ERP that often. So you got to be very mindful when you have a short term problem and you're dealing with something. You quickly go write a custom code, do something, and that person will go, and in another couple of years nobody remembers what that is, and that becomes a big problem for everybody. So for me, when you're dealing with a sophisticated beast like SAP, you got to keep in mind simple and standard. So if I have to write a custom code, I should go to SAP and say, well, why is it not your functionality? And most of the times they'll say, oh, this is how you do it, or there's a plugin, use that kind of thing. Simplifying your systems and keeping them simple is a big part for me in my journey. Standardization and simplification is my big motto. You if you want to run, if you got to appreciate you're not the technologist, they are. So if it's so important, they would have done it anyway, so why are you trying to mess around with it? So that's my big learning. When I came here, we did a major simplification program. We standardized a lot of things, and that's helping me today, because you can focus on the bigger things, and if it goes wrong, you can just go back to them and they'll say, yeah, this is our bit and we need to fix it.
That's excellent. And with that in mind, it also will help people get ready for the cloud environment as well, because that is a much more standardized environment, of course. So excellent. Thank you, Sudeep. So finally, if you were able to look into your crystal ball, and that this is a difficult one at this current time, we don't know what's around the next corner, really. What do you think will be the biggest change we'll see in the coming 5 years in the world of IT?
If I had a crystal ball, I think I would first see what's happening with the government, second with inflation, borrowing cost, interest rates, but and even what's happening next week, as you said. But beyond that, from a technology space, I think honestly think AI would be the biggest disruptor, and that would not be done. And I love working with SAP. That wouldn't be done by the big companies. I think it'll be done by the startups, because it's very easy to drive innovation in a startup. So AI would be the biggest disruption, biggest threat, however you call it, and the startups will drive it because they're so quick at innovating. And then what will happen is, the startups either will get massive VC fundings or get acquired by the big companies who have the reach and who will drive the adoption of those innovations, kind of thing. So for me, in my eyes, AI is going to be by far the biggest thing in every space. Not like, when you talk about not just core IT, like, cars and everything, AI will play a big part in every part of our life. From a core SAP perspective, if I had to look at it, like, would significant more percentage of people be there on S4 with Rise and everything? Yes, but that's not a prediction. That's a bit obvious, right? That's their strategy. That's what everybody is doing. We would be there. For me, what would be a big thing is SAP will go beyond the ERP space, and I think what I see with SAP, which I'm surprised that there has not been that much of adoption. With what I see with SAP, with the work they're doing on the in the data analytics space. So with SAC, which is a big focus for us, the SAP Analytics Cloud, the whole reporting analytics insight space, and how they're building their new data warehouses. It's a bit immature at times, right, as of now, because it's so new. But in 5 years' time, SAP will be a key source for people to drive their data analytics journey. And as of now, there are many players, many products in the market, and we chose SAP, and we are one of the really early ones, so we have to bear the pain of it. But I still believe our strategic long-term partnership is SAP, and in 5 years' time, SAC or equivalent products of SAP would be the key. And imagine your ERP, your data warehouse, your data lakes, your analytics tools, everything is all interconnected. The power of that, the real-time power of that will be amazing. So for me, from a ERP and SAP perspective, that'll be the big thing.
Oh, fantastic. I think I heard a saying once, he who owns the data owns the world, but I suppose it's he who is able to extract the insight and intelligence from the data will own the world. But that's fantastic. Sudeep, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights. And thank you for listening. We hope you've enjoyed our conversation and found it valuable. So please make sure you do subscribe so you don't miss any of our future senior IT leader interviews. And until the next time, stay safe, stay well, and keep washing your hands.